everything to light and not leaving anyone in the darkness, because that is source, walking with source and experiencing source through that light. Something that came up for me, something that I've been continuously working on is is walking in duality, is walking with the darkness and the light. It's seeing the union between what our perceived darkness is and also what light is, and walking with all of it, allowing all of it to be okay, and experiencing that the divine is not only the light and the maybe the goodness and the joy and the happiness, but because everything is an expression of the divine, I feel that it's all of it. It's all of it, and um, and allowing us to come in union with the darkness and the light, because then nothing is separate. It comes into the divine masculine, divine feminine, come into full coherence and merging with the oneness of all that is, which is my, I feel, work here, my purpose, if I could call it that, my dharma is bringing union with all things that perceive to be separate, even darkness and light.
I don't know if you can get that done in one lifetime.
You can certainly try.
Getting it done, right? It's just walking that path and recognizing that these two can dance and be in union with each other. Because if there is perceived darkness, then where is that coming from? Isn't it all the divine? Isn't it all an expression of consciousness? And is it our projection or judgment that one is better than the other?
Of course. And it's not to say that darkness and lower vibrational frequencies are not of the divine. But as we see them, we must lift them. By lifting them, we don't seek to change them. We seek to see them in light and see them from the space that is one, that is whole, that recognizes that all is and all only is. And love exists through it all. And if we perceive a situation, another human, a aspect of ourself as anything less than divine, then our experience will most certainly align and mirror to that. That the only way for us to truly experience ourselves as our true self is to see, believe, do, act, and create in that way. And for example, we are in a situation, or someone is in a situation, and they're presented with someone who acts or says something in such a way that if we're watching it from kind of that third party perspective, there's two people in front of us and we're watching the movie of it, person A and person B. Person A says something hurtful or coming from a place of anger towards person B. The typical story is person B reacts to person A in such a way where there's a defense, there's a cowering, there is a desire to not be experiencing what this person is seeking to give. And I don't want this, I don't want that. Don't be mean to me. And what that really does is it makes it all true for both of them. And it makes them create the story of this person's giving something, this person doesn't want it, so there's conflict. And what is going to create the idea and experience of separation between both, and the idea that one person is wrong. There's a experience of a number of different things: anxiety, suffering. There could be a building up of this person then like gets bigger and attacks the other person from a place of fear. A number of different ways that it can play out. Yet there's another way. And we all know it. But how often do we all, in every situation, really do it? And the more often that we are non-reactive, that we're able to see that and just allow it to be. You know, it wouldn't make for a good movie if someone was non-reactive in that moment. Someone's coming at this person, and just imagine a bunch of screaming, a bunch of yelling, a bunch of attackful words, all that. And this person is not in a space of receiving them, but is in the space of, in the same way that we observe our thoughts, observing this person's reactions. Observing them from a space of, they're not being directed at me. Even if there's something that this person did. It's this person's beliefs and reactions to this person's. And then allowing there to be that space, allowing there to be non-reaction. And then coming to a space of offering gratitude for what was shared.
Mm.
Thank you for voicing how you feel. And letting there be whatever's needed to be said. And it could be nothing. There could be no words. It could just be breathing, which is often really difficult to do when one is being attacked or one is believes they're being attacked. And in that way, we're transmuting the whole situation. We're looking past it. We're seeing that person from a place of love. And there's a beautiful part of A Course in Miracles where it talks about how everything is a call for love. Everything is a call for love. And so this person is calling for love through this way of doing, being, thinking, acting. And it's normally perceived as like an attack. And so it's then like this battle. But if this person's able to see it as a call for love and give love, be giving love as this person is perceptively attacking, loving them, like, and the way that's done very practically is looking at them and finding something in their physical attributes that will help us move into seeing their spirit by, oh, this person has beautiful eyes. Oh, this person has a lovely beard. This person has a lovely smile, or some way, trying to find some way of connecting a compliment or seeing beauty in them, and then taking that beauty and going further and seeing past how it's all playing out, looking into their eyes, seeing their spirit and resonating with the love there, and holding that space while all of the words, emotions and stuff are coming from this person over. And as we give them that love, something happens. There's a shift that happens within this person, and it's felt over here. And I can tell you this from experience, that it's almost like the story stops. That this person feels heard, and the call for love is picked up, received, and given. And they're in a whole new paradigm of being together. Because one person's calling for love, doesn't realize they're calling for love, has no idea that these actions and thoughts and ways is really just that, a call for love. And everything, call for love. And so if we get to that space where we're able to see everything, every reaction, from the most minute, simple things to the most profound connections with the deeply challenging relationships of our life, we're able to see them all as a call for love, then we are effectively doing not only ourselves, but the whole world the greatest service of being in a state of resonance of love in every moment. And the beauty that can arise from that for your own experience and for anyone in your presence is incredible. And even that word doesn't truly capture what can be there.
Mm.
And do we fall short of this? Why, of course. But the better we can get at it daily, the more that we can, in each moment, in all of our interactions, how many people in this world have the same interactions with the same people day in and day out? And how often are we coming from this place of being in loving resonance and moving from that place and space in each moment? And so that's our gift that we offer. And that's what can be found through individual work, that can be found through group work, that can be found through retreat, that can be found through coaching, that can be found through plant medicine, that can be found through religious practices, that can be found through, you name it, there's a path, there's a way. There's no perfect, correct way for everyone, but every way is perfect. And so I feel like we all here, us four, are bringing what we bring to the space, to the retreat we're putting on collectively, to be in our service. And we all have different resonance in the makeup of who, where, why, how, what we come from. We use different words, yet we all speak to, come from, are birthed by the same love. And we're all returning to that same love, day in and day out, night in and night out.
Walking each other home.
Hand to hand, arm in arm.
Thank you, Andrew. I think that was quite a beautiful way to capture the work we'll be doing together in this retreat coming up, in many to come, but the next one in Mexico. So, yeah. It's really. Go ahead.
Okay. I started watching and there's been many people watching this Netflix documentary. I'm sure maybe you both have watched it. Sonic and Christopher, I'm not sure if you have, Jessica, but fantastic fun guy.
Yes, I recommended
Mhm.
it to someone
Yeah.
today that was interested in our retreat. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes,
And
yes.
I want to watch it again.
Me
it's
too.
such a beautiful, it reminds me, and I know there's many people out there that millennials and above and below, and for those that are younger, if you haven't seen it, watch Avatar.
Yes.
Incredible take on, I will say, Pocahontas that took it a step further. Um, and there's the beginning of the documentary that really made me just ponder on Avatar and how their land they understood as this just living, breathing being, and how all of the plants and animal life and flowers and everything spoke to each other. And so fascinating in the documentary how it talks about the entire earth is basically mushrooms, and how underneath the land that we walk on, the land that we build on, there are these links that are linked together by the mushrooms, by the roots and the basically the synapses of the earth is the mushroom, and the fruiting body that arises above that we eat for health, that we avoid if they're uh, much more toxic. There's so many different types of mushrooms in the psilocybin and the magic mushrooms that help us rewire the synapses. How curious that they're coming from the earth synapses, they're coming out of the earth, and we can consume them to then rewire our synapses in our brain. And early on in the documentary, and this was something I was sharing with my parents, and the benefit of these these medicines and mushrooms not just being the only one, but the one that um, I've worked with for so much of my life is able to help us rewire our brain very easily and much more um, deliberately. And there was a gentleman who shared his experience about how, and for everyone that's watched it, you'll know this story he shared is when he first took his mushroom dose, he probably had over like 10, 12 grams, which, at the time he had no idea that that was going to be a hefty dose. And he was in
He's
the middle of
brave.
this, he was definitely brave. And he had this experience on top of a hill in the rain, thunderstorm, holding a tree. I think he climbed up the tree at one point in time, and he was sitting there and he wanted to stop stuttering. All of his life he stuttered, and it was a challenge for him. And I think he said that he said, "Stop stuttering now, stop stuttering now, stop stuttering now, stop stuttering now," thousands of times. And this type of intention, this type of rewiring with the mushrooms, that intention, I can feel it in my body and my vibration is effectively like with the mushrooms assisting him with that intention. He's going in and he is changing how his brain works, how the stutter that is just quite simply a particular wiring of the brain, it's going in and it's like having these little mushroom like beans that I envision that are going in. They're like, oh, no more stuttering, stop stuttering, stop stuttering. Okay, let's change this firing. Let's change this firing. Let's change this one. And then like he wakes up the next day, he sees this beautiful woman that he's always wanted to talk to, and he speaks to her and he's not stuttering anymore. And okay, other side of this, there's a whole world out there of Western medicine that has tried to, through so many different types of therapies, through so many types of pharmaceuticals, through so many different types of medication, a different type of medication to help people through whatever challenge they have. And yet, here's this natural plant that has been on this earth for billions of years potentially that can fundamentally help us work through the most difficult things we struggle with in our life.
Mm. Andrew, as you were speaking, I was seeing how the mushrooms are a bridge between that mycelium network that connects all living plants and soil and little insects and the earth, essentially the wisdom of the earth, how it's a bridge between the wisdom of the earth and it's this in between living being between, it's like between life and death, so we can merge
Rebirth, maybe.
with experiences that are often clouded by conditioning of the self, and I experience how a lot of plants are this bridge of the divine, the form and the formless. And how mushrooms, how fast they grow and how they grow, and cows shit, and they're just this unique being that is super transformative, super intelligent, and it is facilitating humanity as many other plants, as many other plants. But I feel this is the plant I've mostly worked with, and I feel this indestructible connection between the love, the intelligence, the humor, all the different
It's quite funny.
experiences that you have this sense of it just gets me every time. But it's indestructible of our true nature, because it almost it feel like it reflects the true nature that we are, that we're not separate from the earth, from the plants, from the cosmos, from these experiences of a complete unification with the divine. And to me, this is magic beyond magic.
I agree. I agree totally.
Yeah, I think the mushroom, like many plant medicines, really can only speak from personal experience with plant medicines, but really connects me, and what I feel I received from many guests and retreat attendees is the spirit of the plants and the wisdom that they carry, and that it is going to be different for everybody, because we're, although all connected in many ways, we have all chosen to come to this existence, and we're bringing different things that we're working through. And so what I realized in the last week is every single traumatic experience, or just experience in general, gives us the ability to continue to do the healing. And I was actually mentioning a quote from a dear friend, Grant, who's going to be at this retreat, is the reward of doing the work is more work. So I'm really looking forward to, just holding that space, and also aware that we are all just students doing the same thing. We're all learning, we're all evolving, we're all, at least I can speak for myself, I'm seeing how each experience has brought me closer to being able to be in service in this way. Over the last 9 years, it's been a journey of just continuous excavating and just watching the self and observing. And all your words, Andrew, were so potent, because becoming non-reactive and just really witnessing each person, and even the child within that person who's having their little tantrum. As a mother and being on this earth for 40 years now, it's been very interesting where I was that child. I was that person giving the tantrum for many years. And now I'm witnessing my children do the same thing, and how it's just a call for love, like you said. I could literally just grab them and hug them. It would have to be constant all day if I really attended to them every time, but also just allowing them to hold themselves, you know? So holding space for others, not necessarily, I'm going to hug and hold your hand the whole time. It's knowing and having the awareness where one has to do it for themselves. And so that's been my experience mostly with ayahuasca, but in life as a mother, as just a witnesser, an observer, is just that we're all moving through things at all times, whether we're completely aware of it or not. And we can show up, and we get to choose how we show up, whether we're showing up with love and compassion, or we're showing up blinded by the emotions of anger or fear, which are, it all really many times comes down to fear, and the conditioning that has allowed that fear to develop, whether it's a fear of darkness or a fear of lack of control, or lack of safety. But how we started this call was so interesting. It was the awareness of that everything is so impermanent, that even the idea of having security is just a creation of our mind so that we can feel safe and less fear. And it can throw you through a loop, but it's something my teacher Gangaji has always said, there's no security in anything. It's a creation of our mind. If you really think about it, what is to say that in the next moment, the earthquakes, the earth moves here in Costa Rica, and goodbye, Jessica, goodbye, my existence, goodbye, the retreat, goodbye, everything, And so it's triggered, and it's a reminder every time we lose a loved one, every time we get a diagnosis of like a life-altering, disease or something. It's like it stops you and just reminds you of the impermanence. And so that's why I'm seeing the teaching in everything. It's like a reminder. Wow, okay, remember. And so with mushrooms and ayahuasca and yopo and kambo and all these amazing medicines I've been gifted to receive over the years is really nothing more than a remembrance, because we do come here with all of this awareness. No one of us is a guru. No one of us is going to be your maestro or your teacher. It's really finding that wisdom that's already in us and that we already know on the deepest level and remembering it. That's it. We're remembering it. And that's what I love about many of my teachers is they're so humble. And I will call them my teachers because they've taught me this, that it's all within us. And the plants teach us, the mushrooms, the chacruna, the tobacco, all of it. So I'm really excited to venture on this with you guys and all the beautiful beings that are feeling called to do this work.
Yeah. We did begin this conversation. I was thinking about that too, Jessica, on talking about, you said something along the lines of not knowing that stability is there, or just how everything is, it's just an absolute mystery. And I was joking with Slavka just the other day of totally a joke, but partially true, which is why it's funny, right? Of having a student, a training, and it would just be like, I was imagining it like some modern day Greek Athens like university, big vision. And it's just called a student teacher university. And there's just a bunch of students teaching other students how to be teachers, but no one ever actually becomes a teacher. We're just all students learning. And that's how we're really learning, by being students to the teachings, or the lack of teachings, and just being genuinely curious. And I know Andrew said something about beliefs, and I know that's why I chose, or I don't know, I can't even say I chose mushrooms, or however it happened that I never would have imagined that I would have been somebody that chooses to have experiences with plant medicine, which could be worded in a totally different way from somebody on the outside looking in. But I wanted to know what's true about my present experience, but I didn't want to know it intellectually. I wanted to experience. I didn't want to have beliefs. I don't want to believe in God. I want to feel God. I want to experience God. My idea. Well, no, not that's the thing. Not my idea even of that God. Just to go into the unknown. And I was, if anyone else wants to comment on this, I'd like to explore this, because I'm thinking about somebody who maybe has never had a plant medicine experience, and I'm wondering if any of you want to speak on if you felt fear going into it, and I mean a specific fear about like working with plant medicine. I mean, I know there was some fear there about like, is this going to change my brain forever? Do I really? Now looking back, I'm very happy it's changed my brain forever, and it will continue to change. But I wasn't afraid when I heard people talk about that when it came to plant medicine. So I'm just wondering if any of you think it would be valuable to comment on, how you dealt with fear going into medicine, having a medicine ceremony for the first time.
I'd love to speak to that, because I feel that most people experience plants and mushrooms as a young teenager, kind of really carefree. And I think I took more risks as a younger adult, but I did nothing. I never did MDMA or coke or any substance, not even really cannabis. My first experience was with ayahuasca at the age of like 31. And yeah, I was scared. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was an attorney, for God's sakes. Like, everything was very aligned and planned and perfect in my life. And at the same time, I knew that. Yeah, I know that that's actually a joke. There's a reason why I was called, because I had a serious medical diagnosis where I was diagnosed with a very dangerous tumor in my spine. I was left paralyzed. I was not given very much hopes for a long life. So I decided to go to Costa Rica, where I've been visiting for like 8 years, and found a shaman. Well, she found us and was in a ceremony within a month of moving here. And yeah, fear. It's humbling. And I also recognize that every single person, because I've probably come across about 1,000 different people, if you want to put a number on it, going into their first ceremony over the years, and that fear is there. And it's always going to be there. It's natural. It's like the fear of the unknown. But also, I think it's healthy. I mean, I never want to go into a ceremony where I got this, where I think I know anything. Because the second you think you know, it's going to bring you through a journey so that you realize you don't know. We don't know much. And just to be open and humbled, and just, okay, if there's fear coming up, know that it's just humbling. It's there. And every time I sit with medicine, I sit with it with the mindset that it's my first time. Always going to be my first time, because it's always going to be different. So you can't necessarily say that, oh, I did 5 grams last time, I got this, just because it's 3 grams. No, I mean, it's going to be what it's necessary in that moment. I also am of the firm belief that the plants are wiser than we could ever imagine, and they'll give us what we can handle. And there's just no doubt in that at all. But yeah, you don't have to have any experience. I'm very confident in that. If you feel the intuitive calling to do the medicine, to follow that intuition and to use your heart and your intuition to make that choice, and not so much your mind, because the mind is where fear comes, and then ideas and stories. There is a mind factor to it, but if you really can look within and follow the intuition, that's what brought me into medicine, and it's changed my life. And there are children that I see do medicine. I mean, as young as 9 in indigenous cultures. And it's a beautiful, I think we lose the awareness that this has been done for thousands of years.
Right.
This is a way of life. ceremony is not necessarily ceremony. They see this in the traditions that life is a ceremony. And when we do these medicines, it's a moment to step back from the ceremony and go into prayer and see what needs to be healed or not healed. Sometimes it can be celebrated. Not every journey is going to be this darkness of the soul. It can be celebratory. It can be joyful. It can be coming back into your joy and your love. And I think bringing it full circle, we cannot really see love in the other until we really, really work on our own inner ability to connect with ourselves. And that's where plant medicines have been so incredibly potent in my life and those that I've been fortunate enough to witness in the journey. So enough from me. Happy to hear whatever you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, thank you for
sister.
sharing. It's always the first time, first sentence, first word.
You know, something interesting for me in my experience with medicine is this one, it's the curiosity, but two, it's this deep trust that whatever unfolds, it's here for my greatest serving. And I think this trust overrides any kind of fear.
This trust you're saying right now, distrust, this trust.
This, like the trust
Okay.
that I feel, it's that is what I experience to be one of the most beautiful anchors in any journey. It's like, oh my gosh, because a lot of times in my journeys, I would experience the fear while I'm in the journey. But because I went in with that trust, I can see the fear and not be engrossed into the fear. I can see that it's here for my. I don't have to resist it because I've already said yes to it. So now it's showing up. It's like, okay, let's work through that. And I would also add, if you feel like this is not like that's what Jessica said, to come back to the intuitive feeling, because a lot of times I feel the people that I've spoken with, you know, there's this deep curiosity, but the fear's overriding that. And it's like, yeah, honor that. Like, honor that space that you're in right now, because it's important to trust when the time is right for the individual. That's going to happen no matter what, and to really trust in that. Yeah, trusting in the medicine, trusting in yourself.
I want to comment just a little bit on what you just said, because it inspired something within me, which is this idea of which can be appropriated in self-development circles of, you have to face your fear, right? Like the gift. I used to say this analogy all the time, that I thought all of my greatest gifts are wrapped in a layer of fear and suffering and pain. Wow. Do I really want to open this thing up then? And that was in part the reality that I saw. But what I want to speak to is the magic which I've experienced with mushrooms, with in many different ways, not exclusively with mushrooms. Even in the Course in Miracles, it talks about this too, that nothing, well, it says, the Course, if I remember it correctly, it says you need not do nothing. But to say that in another way, it's nothing has to happen. Like the relief of, oh wait, so I don't need to go and face serpents and do ayahuasca in Brazil to be my whole healed and complete self. No, nothing. I mean, every medicine that I've ever worked with has communicated to me in some way, like, oh, everything is okay as it is. And this thing that appears to be the, it's almost, I want to say placebo effect, but I can't fully say, well, yes, I can say it like this, a representative ceremony that when I look back on it in the past appeared to be the thing that got me there. But only when I get there do I realize that the thing itself, the mushroom, the whatever it is saying, yeah, you didn't even have to do that. But we're happy to have been of service as the way into you seeing who you already were before it happened. So it doesn't have to happen. And to me, there's just a liberation in like,
Mm.
oh yeah, because I was trained and conditioned like most people,
Mhm.
like, you got to make it happen, do things. You're not okay as you are now. Okay as you are now. What do you mean okay as you are now? We've got progress and results and all these things that society or whatever it is places inside of us.
Mm.
That's it for now.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Nothing needs to happen because it already is.
And then you get to choose from a place of a totally different place.
Yeah.
You're not choosing them from a place of
Fear.
yeah,
Oh.
of letting that fear continue. And even if you do want to face it, there's a beautiful and loving way. This is all just everything transmuting eventually back into the love that it is. And we get to choose even the pathway of facing the fear from a fearful place to see that it was all just love. Anyhow, for whatever psychological reasons we were set up that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It does.
Welcome back to love.
I'd like to comment on a few things
Please, brother.
and just express gratitude to you each for everything that was spoken there. It was a joy to hear, and Jessica, you sharing your journey and showing up for the first time every time, like it's the first time, because it is the first time. I love that so much. Christopher, you spoke to truth, and there was a quote that came up that I really wanted to share. And much of my life, I really was in a space of seeking truth, like almost trying to find what's like the perfect paragraph, what's the perfect phrase. What is it? What combination of words is really gonna like do it? And from reading different books and reading different poetry and reading different, just diving into the information world, and until I came across this one quote, it was always like I was just continually searching. There wasn't a paragraph.
You found the perfect paragraph and it was only a quote?
And it was only a quote, and it wasn't even it. That's the beauty of it all. Yet it said, and I think this was either in A Course in Miracles or in Gary Renard's book, The Disappearance of the Universe. A universal theology is impossible. Yet a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. And so an experience, like you said, what you're looking for, you want to experience God. That experience that you have, you can try to put words to it, but somehow it always like falls short. Poets, philosophers, ministers, shamans, creative musicians, so many people have done their best to express the formless in form. Yet it seems quite impossible. It's like we're only getting a shadow of it. Yet we're capable as spiritual beings to experience spirit, because that's what we are. But we can't translate it into form. We can't. Which word is form? Word is a form of sound that, as Eckhart Tolle would say, is different air pressure, movements of our lip, placements of our tongue, that we've agreed to what this particular word means. And so how can any of that be the experience of our truth, be the experience of source, be the experience of love? It can point to it, but it's never really it. And I wanted to speak to fear, and there was an image that came up for me that was my childhood at some point in time, and it was how fear and love can exist in the same place. And it's all a matter of perspective, and it's all a matter of where we're coming from. For anyone that remembers the movie Sandlot, or has been to a high school pool or Olympic style pool, or ever watched the Olympics, there's usually two different sizes of diving boards. There's the one that's kind of like down here, and it's maybe like 3 feet off from the water. And then there's like the high dive that's, maybe 15, 20 feet up. And then there's maybe like a platform that's like 40 feet up. And as an 11, 10, 9-year-old kid, it's like super easy to walk up to that one that's 3 feet off the water and dive in, jump in, cannonball, jackknife, backflip, front flip, whatever, belly flop.
Got the moves.
Yeah, all of it. And that's great. And it's a place of joy and fun, and there's no fear there. And then you like kind of graduate to this next diving board, and there's like a little bit more anxiety. And maybe someone's the person that's like, you're too afraid to even climb the ladder to go up there. Because like if you're up there, it's like, then I gotta go. And so you don't do it. And so maybe a year or two passes, and then you're like, oh, I'm bigger, I'm old enough. And you go to that same diving board and you climb up and you get to the top, and there's a little bit of anxiety, but you feel good about it. And you jump off. You do it the first time and it's a little scary. But then you have that invigoration of, you could say, conquering the fear, but really it's seeing it differently. It's seeing that same situation where fear once existed, now in a place of enthusiasm, of enjoyment, of love. And okay, now I can do a really cool front flip, or a really big dive, or maybe a double backflip, if that's your thing. And a place that fear once existed now is a place of love. And then take the platform that's 40 feet up. Same thing. Now you're 16 years old, 17 years old, or whatever age. And you have the courage to walk up to that place, and you look down and it's like, this is far. And your friends down below are like, do it, just jump, it's not that high. And you're like, it looks really high from up here. And all the thoughts run through your head, and it's just like, I don't know that I can do this, but now everyone's watching. If I don't do it, I'm gonna be a coward. Kind of close your eyes and you're like, just do it. But open your eyes because you really want to see where you're going. You don't want to not hit anything, and all these thoughts. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna jump, and then you jump, and that exhilaration of falling, of hitting the water, of coming up, of screaming, and all of your friends are celebrating. And then that same situation, that same place where fear was, is now a source of happiness, of joy, of enthusiasm. And you can go to that same place and enjoy it and be in love with it. And so in all of our life, things, experiences, places, emotional places within us that could be or have been a source of fear can be seen differently, can be experienced differently. And it doesn't matter what tool we use to see it differently. There are tools everywhere, with every spiritual practice, with every medicine, with every religion, with every book, every teacher, every situation that can help us walk up to that diving board of life and jump and see it new. And return to it someday and remember how we once felt fear there, yet now we feel love. Now we feel excitement. Now we feel enthusiasm. And so the power is, it's not in conquering our fears, it's in allowing ourselves to see it differently, allowing ourselves to experience it differently. And in the experience, which is the only thing that we can universally all come to, there we can find our truth. There we can find our love. There we can really experience ourselves as sons and daughters of the divine, coming into the knowing of our manifestation as truth, in truth, and through truth.
I just close my eyes and I see the peace sign.
Mm.
Like just being reflected in my internal being. Beautiful, Andrew. Alchemizing fear to love. And seeing that fear is okay and it's a natural impulse of the physical human experience. In a way, it's here to also protect the human to be in the physical as long as possible. So in a way, it actually comes from love. It comes from love. Be here as well. We're going to be here as
being careful, full of care.
being here, being careful, and but not full of care, not
being
careful.
Full of care.
Being full of care. Yeah. Because our natural actually this is a good it's a good divergence between, not divergence, but a comparison between fear and being scared. Because right now what I was actually thinking about is being scared, right? So protecting ourselves. Let's say something is running, like a wild animal is running after us, and we feel, a lot of times we think it's fear, but actually we're scared, which is such a,
but that's love too. It's just the love you definitely want to run away from if you want to live.
But that's what I mean. In that sense, there's a protective mechanism of, hey, keep this vessel body here, so consciousness can continue to experience itself through your channel. And when it's your time to transcend, then that will inevitably happen.
To comment on that, the guides through Paul Selig and Paul himself kind of talk about that exactly, like fear and discernment. You have a poisonous snake who's in front of you. It's discerning to not pick up the snake and try to pet it like Jessica just pet her dog. It's a useful way to approach the situation. And using discernment is, in the presence of fear, useful. But to see the snake from 20 feet away and to run, that's fear. That's letting the experience of an idea that could be the experience of, maybe the snake will slither towards me and bite me, so I'm going to run away. That's fear. But to walk by and not pick it up, that's discernment. That's wisdom. That's acknowledging that, yes, exactly what you said, Zlatka. We have to allow our fight or flight system to do its job, to prevent us from stepping into the street, to picking up a snake, to getting ourselves into a situation that would harm our communication device to communicate love in this world. And we have an obligation to listen to that, yet not let it be the dictator in all of our decisions. Like, when is it we're letting it be the controller and controlling us, or when are we allowing it, or how are we allowing it to kind of be a worker for us? Like, we're the authority figure, and it's like, hey, watch out for this. We're like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Versus and like run away, and it's directing all of our movements and actions. So I think that's a beautiful point, because we do have a certain obligation to protect our body and allow the natural mechanisms to play out, yet not let the natural mechanisms to control us.
Absolutely. What was your experience, Baker, with fear going into the mushrooms? Going into that experience.
So
Can you hold that thought, because I gotta pee?
Yeah. No worries. worries. Absolutely. I'll say this in the interim, the in-between time. And yeah, if any, Jess, if you need to, do your thing too. That's
I'm fine. Thank you
Yeah.
though.
brilliant. Yeah. You too, baby. You too, Christopher. If anyone's gotta
Thanks,
go,
babe.
go now.
Thanks.
Letting everyone know.
Thank you. We have permission.
That's I was thinking about a lot about, and I'm gonna tie it into my experience with fear. The analogy that I think is from Ramana Maharshi, where he talks about mistaking, because we were talking about a snake, so mistaking a piece of rope and mistaking it for a snake. And I was thinking about this super like valid and the point that both you and Andrew were elaborating on. And I was also thinking about the times when we're thinking we're looking out for our survival, or thinking we're doing this thing to,
Right.
that's very much based on the identification with mind and body, the individual mind and body, and how sometimes that snake is actually a rope.
Right.
And how whatever it is that I'm fearing isn't what it appears to be. And I'm saying this with caution, because I do even mean that, to the point where if I got hit by a truck right now, if I walked into walking the street, got hit by a truck, and I died, it could be like the best thing ever. And what I mean by that is I would even potentially buy out of the illusion that I am this temporary mind body, and that I'm merged with infinite bliss consciousness forever and ever, as if that's not already happening. But the point is I guess I'm pointing to the fear of death, and I'm not saying or recommending that anyone, engage in any dangerous activities to find out if the implications of what I'm talking about are true. Actually, on the contrary, which, Andrew, perfect timing, this has to do with what I wanted from an experience with sacred mushrooms, which was I wanted to experience what it's like to die without having to die. I read a bunch of information about how if you have enough of this plant, well, not a plant, right? Actually, a fungus. If you ingest enough of it, you can have, or even with LSD, but I didn't, LSD synthetic. And this was my first time. And mushrooms, because I was listening to Ram Dass, Ram Dass was talking about mushrooms with Tim Leary. And he was talking about how he had this disappearing experience. And I said to myself, I want to try that. I want to see what is real or true without me in the way, or so I was thinking. And that was terrifying. That was very scary to me to think, and then to think that at that point in time, from some of the people that I was listening to, their guidance was not only to eat a bunch of mushrooms, like a large amount of them, over 5 grams, but to do it alone. So now I'm in total darkness, and I'm like, okay, I think this might be a scary situation, but, well, it's not actually, but I had ceremony with Les first to develop this bond and relationship after doing a lot of research. And I had someone with me, and I sort of instructed them how to hold space for me, which was interesting. But my point in sharing that is I already had a little bit of the experience, and I almost disappeared this first time. I could feel this like large sucking noise, like where, and I opened my eyes and I was like, okay, all right. So I clearly didn't take quite enough to disappear, but I didn't want to. Actually, that's when I first experienced God. Like my first experience, I believed in God my whole life, just found out she's real and she's everything and all things, and everything I believed in was actually a manifestation. Or, all right, check, good experience, very happy, and just the most amount of gratitude that even a new relationship with gratitude. So I had an overwhelming positive first experience with it. And so that, I think, propelled me into facing this fear. But there was definitely a lot of fear of, my intention with sitting down with, it was about 8 grams or so of dried mushrooms. I know the street name. I don't know the real name. The street name is penis envy. I don't know what the actual name for that strand is. It's certainly not penis envy. And I got what I was afraid of getting. And then I realized that there was no one even there to have feared that. And I disappeared, and it was terrifying. And the whole first part of that ceremony, I was naked and alone and crying on a yoga mat in my parents' basement. Thinking like, just come back. I want my problems. I want it all. I want my ego. Give me a Christopher. I want Christopher. So how funny is this? You know, my ego was subtly thinking that it still existed. And the story of Christopher was, he eats too much mushrooms and becomes schizophrenic. I diagnosed myself with schizophrenia during my mushroom experience. This was terrifying. And I realize the context in which I'm saying this in, because it is, it's not always pleasant. It's like the scariest. I wanted to cease to exist. I thought I got it. And then I realized that I didn't really want it. I'm begging my mind and body to come back. And finally, in a moment, which I can only describe as a natural self-inquiry, thank the God, whatever it was that allowed this to come through, I asked myself, I've managed to put my clothes back on, managed not to go into my parents' bedroom and say, Mom and Dad, I don't exist. Please drive me to the hospital. Something's wrong. I'm not here. Managed to not do that. And I finally, after 3 hours of not existing outside of time and space, because I can't even, I just wasn't there. I don't know how to describe it other than saying I was looking out of my own eyes with my own hands, but they were no longer my own hands and no longer my own eyes. So there was an awareness, if you will. And I asked myself to think, I'm so grateful that this happened, and the way that maybe it's because of my neurology or how my brain works that it happened in this like order of catastrophe and then relief, human kind of part of our collective human story as well. But I asked myself, I said, wait a minute. If I have ceased to exist, if I no longer exist, then who or what is it that's so worried, that's so worked up about not being here? And in that moment, I was like, my ego is thick and it's clever. It was worrying about not even existing. And at that moment, I laughed for about 3 or 4 hours, thought I realized the cosmic joke of the universe, that I can't even say it. In the moment that I say it, I'm in some way, even subtly, judging that whatever I'm saying it to is somehow other than me, and it actually doesn't know it. And so it's just this thing that's making the same noise kind of endlessly to itself, and all these different expressions that appear as different emotional states in different people and different times and different places. How can I give words to that? And it was the best. Like the gratitude that I felt was just so, I'm like, I'm back. I'm in my body. I'm Christopher again. I'm here, and I didn't even actually disappear. And so I just kind of faced the fear. To answer that question in a very long way. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I love sharing that story. And there's more to it. That was the condensed version. Believe it or not.
Thank you. I think that was a very illustrative way to feel your journey. I think anyone who's had an ego death with psychedelics can entirely relate. And then letting go of the self and becoming with you can't not describe, is where many don't even realize they can go. I mean, it's interesting. You were following Ram Dass, so you knew where you could go, and so you were able to hit the light bulb in that moment, be like, I got it, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's others who have no idea, like me, and letting go of all of that. It was actually And it's my challenge to actually be human, because I actually feel very comfortable in that state over the years. I really enjoy watching myself as a human and letting it all dissolve, and witnessing how it's a challenge to be in this vessel, in this avatar. And like, I'm totally okay.
Mm.
I have said goodbye many times. My children are good. I'll just stay here. And then, I'm pulled back
Mhm.
because there's work to be done. And so, yeah, those deaths are amazing. And it's amazing when you can enjoy them too and laugh through it. Like you said, I can just laugh and laugh at how I show up as a human. And it just brings so much insight so that when you are back, you don't take life so seriously. We get caught up for sure, but really seeing this whole existence on a cellular level, and how it's all here to teach us and how we are creating it at the same time is quite powerful. But it cannot be spoken to. So anything that we put into words right now is not going to speak to the medicine, really. So
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna say?
I do know. I know exactly. And the title can be changed, but the live on YouTube right now, the title, by the way, is Life as Medicine. So
It's, well, this morning we were listening to a podcast talking about the Tao Te Ching. And one of the first verses in the Tao Te Ching is, that which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. And so Christopher and I went into this philosophical discussion this morning. And I was sharing with Christopher, I'm like, babe, that's the message I received the first time I was on mushrooms. I'm like, yes, that which you name it can be limited to that. It can be constrained in that, the infinite consciousness that we are. And of course, Jessica and Andrew both were bringing this up. Mm-hmm. That which can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. It's not the eternal consciousness that is ever unfolding in this present moment. And I often feel, and this could be my own belief, but I've experienced with mushrooms as well, how it is this continuous exploration of the self experiencing itself through itself. And it becomes this endless, infinite expression that has no end and no beginning. And so the first time when I did mushrooms, I remember that's one of the kind of like the first guide messages that they gave me. I remember seeing these waves of energy moving through, and the mushrooms whispered to me, and they said, we're going to take you as far as you allow yourself to go. But it felt like this endless exploration that is, it's infinite. And in that infinity, I had some fear. I'm like, oh, this is getting freaking out. Where am I gonna go? What's going to be experienced? And then, as humorous as they often are, I came back to my intention, which at that time was, I was really interested to know what my purpose is, as probably many people do. It's like, what is my purpose? I want to know my purpose. And I thought the mushrooms would share this purpose with me. And the beautiful message, it was so challenging to hear this from the mushrooms, because I'm saying, what is my purpose? And the mushrooms said to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And my ego was like, oh, it doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? It's like, why are we here? What do you mean it doesn't matter? And so I kept asking, it doesn't matter. And they were like, yes, it doesn't matter. And they kept getting louder and louder and louder. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think your purpose is. You are living your purpose as you are. And I thought, it's kind of like Andrew, that's looking for that perfect line that will represent the eternal bliss of the universe. I was looking for that. I was like, give me my purpose. And it was the funniest thing. It was the funniest thing. And this whole journey was really it was really a combination of unveiling this. I asked also for the veil to be lifted, for the veil of illusion to be lifted. And it was this constant, I felt like this onion that I kept peeling, and there were just these layers and layers, and I was looking for the pit and I couldn't find the pit. And every time I thought I got it, every time I'm like, this is it. It's like, joke is on you, this is not it. And it was like the jokes of the jokes of the jokes. I'm like, what is happening here? Everything I think I get, it's not it. And that is that message of that which can be named is not the eternal Tao. So, and here we are talking about it.
Doing our best.
Doing our best. Speaking the unspeakable.
We try. We try. And as curious as it is, the words do have resonance. There is a certain something about them. I've always loved the idea that they're signposts, that they're not the road, they're not the journey, they're not the experience, but we can sometimes look up and be like, East Fork Street, that way. That feels good. Okay. And we have an idea of what that's going to be. We have an idea about what East Fork Street is. And yet we get on it. And it's just a totally different story than what we imagined. And what I love so much is how much more rich it always is than the ideas that we can kind of have in our mind. It's like we, in our human mind, are limited with what we can imagine, with what we can believe, yet there's a divine mind that can be tuned into. And the beauty, the power, the simplicity.
The simplicity. Yeah, it's so simple. That's the deep remembrance, right? How simple it actually is. And yet the human mind loves making it complex and interesting.
Give me a word. I want to say it.
Give me something to work with. And yeah. And it also experiences its infinite nature through the divine as we experience as human beings. The mind is such a beautiful tool for being here. We're experiencing its wild and curious and loving and not so loving and all the things in between. This mind that it's nowhere to be pointed to. It's like, where is it? Where is it? And we often think it's in the brain, but yet it's non-existent. It's like a cloud, and it's so convincing that it exists. And at the same time, I'm just appreciating right now its vast, wild expression of the divine, for us to be able to speak the unspeakable, to witness the this piece of art that is ever present in anything and everything. And I think that's another beautiful offering from the plants is to help our mind to be in coherence with our hearts, in coherence with the work we're here to do, in coherence with being true to who we are. And then there's this merging that occurs, and it merges with that which has given birth, because it wouldn't exist, or it wouldn't appear to exist if this illusion was not birthed from the divine. It's like, where else? What isn't birthed from the divine?
Probably only nothing. This feels like a good place to wrap up for me. Yeah, we feeling that way? Beautiful. So for those that don't know, I don't know if we explicitly said us earlier, us four are co-creating a sacred mushroom retreat experience. Jessica referenced it earlier in September, which is about less than a month away. September 14th in Mexico. And for feeling the call to love, to curiosity and exploration, well, somewhere in relationship to this video, there'll be a link with the application. And if you can't find that right off the bat, any one of us, however you're connected, would be happy to share further information with you.
Beautiful day. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Zlatka. And let us continue this dance of the infinite in form.
Aho.
Aho. Beautiful.
That was a long stretch, but we did it.
Yes, we did. And we're still on YouTube. I don't know how to turn it off YouTube. So here's your background
Have live
scenes.
stream.
Where do you see that?